Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. We are joined today by one and only Abhijit Iyer-Mitra, our defense analyst and social media warrior, all rolled into one. He's intrepid. I can't say enough good things about him. Abhijit, the previous two hangouts with you have been have gone extremely well on PGurus channel. It elicited a lot of comments, which is what I look for typically, because that shows the engagement that people have about certain individual when they come on PGurus channel. So thank you very much. Welcome to PGurus channel again, Abhijit.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun being on a program where you're allowed to talk and actually explain yourself properly.
So viewers, today we're going to talk with Abhijit about his complaint that he has made to the Election Commission as well as to the police authorities about what has been happening with Facebook. Now, I want to draw your attention to a specific news item that appeared sometime in, I think it was May 19, 2018, wherein a spokesperson of Facebook said that they were going to start working with Atlantic Council of Washington, D.C. on doing digital forensics and so on and so forth. Abhijit, take it away and explain to our viewers what your view about this was. This was about a year ago, and what has happened since then that led to Facebook shutting down a number of pages.
Right. So here's the thing. When this should have been picked up long back, and I kind of blame myself that I also didn't pick it up because it was so under the weather, under the news at that time, when Facebook announced that they were tying up with Atlantic Council too. And if you notice the announcement that was made, it started up with the assertion Russia interfered in US elections. To ensure that this kind of interference of external actors does not take place, we have tied up with Atlantic Council's digital cyber something security cell to see where information manipulation is happening. Now that's fine because you're an American company contracting this out to an American think tank. But then they go on to say that they're also going to do this in India. Now, have you ever heard of an American think tank taking on the role of Indian constitutional and Indian law enforcement authorities, outsourcing it to an American think tank who are going to take decisions about what is legit in India and what is not legit in India? Now, I can even accept that. So, for example, if you remember, there was a corollary case to this, which is that, all Indian computers in various embassies were compromised by the Chinese. And our cyber security was so bad that nobody detected this, that the Chinese were turning on microphones and cameras of Indian computers across embassies in the globe. And it was because the problem persisted that they took it to Norton or McAfee or one of those antivirus companies who said, listen, your computers are compromised. Fine. But what did McAfee or Norton do? They informed Indian authorities who then took action against these protective action against Chinese hacking. So what's happened is that you basically have a company that has decided to abrogate itself onto judge, judiciary, executioner, everything in India. They will not inform our authorities, right? They will not be an arbiter like, they will not be a doctor who will check what is the problem and then inform the patient to get consent. They are basically like a doctor who has decided that this is the problem and I am going to do whatever, put you under anesthesia. If this happened to an individual, it would be called rape, right? These guys have basically taken on the role of the Indian police, of the Indian judiciary and of the Indian Election Commission, which to me is completely unacceptable. Now, if the Indian judiciary had passed an order on this, I'm fine with that. If the Election Commission had demanded the shutdown of certain sites, even if it was imbalanced, unfair, I'm fine on that. It wasn't. It was an American company doing this. And if you go to their digital cybersecurity cell at the Atlantic Council, not one of those people is an Indian. And one of the distinguished fellows of the Atlantic Council is Shuja Nawaz. Now, he's a friend. I've interacted with him. I've met him. He's a great guy. But the point remains that he is the brother of the former Pakistani Chief of Army Staff. How can you outsource South Asian elections to a place that has a former Chief of Army Staff's brother who's written a book on a suspicious murder, sitting and adjudicating Indian elections.
Absolutely right, valid point, and I'm sure I'm going to take this thing up with the Facebook authorities. I will be sending a copy of, a link to this video when it airs online, soliciting Facebook for their comments about whether they did the due diligence to find out about these links and how, in their opinion, they came to the conclusion that the Atlantic Council was the best equipped to moderate on events happening in India. Now, to add to this, I have a further counter, Abhijit. Now, I wrote an article based on what appeared on CNBC, and in the CNBC, what piqued my interest was an off-the-cuff remark by an author who was an early investor in Facebook called Roger McNamee, I think. And he made a remark saying that Facebook was kowtowing to the ruling party and shutting down a number of the opposition pages, which was in fact not true, because CNN itself had, previous to this interview, published an article where it said that the cybersecurity head of Facebook had said why these pages were being shut down. Coordinated inauthentic behavior for the Congress pages, and a few pages, 50 pages from on the BJP side. And the BJP side, the explanation given was that they were being run by a company called Silver Touch, which had indeed developed the Namo mobile app. So the point they were trying to make, I guess, was that it was too closely connected to the BJP leadership for them to be objective. But be that as it may, what is your take on this? So is this cybersecurity job that is being said by Facebook's work, or do you think it is just passing off Atlantic Council's findings?
So let me just counter all of this. First of all, we know that NDTV, many of its news anchors and editors are very close to certain political parties. Are they going to take down NDTV's Facebook page? Clearly not. We know all the media political linkages that happen, personal family connections and so on and so forth. Are they going to take that down? Obviously not. Now, the Dutch media wants to start 5, 10, 15 channels even to broadcast itself. What problem is that of Facebook's? See, the terms or conditions, does it say that one person is prevented from having more than one page?
No, there isn't any such condition that you have to have only one page.
Exactly right. Yeah. So what is the complaint against Silver Touch here? Because if that is the case that's being made, that they were uncomfortable with a conflict of interest, then Atlantic Council is the biggest conflict of interest. But then let's look at this objectively. Even forget the conflict of interest for a moment. It's a question of sovereignty. How can an American company outsourcing to an American think tank with all white boys and white girls sitting on that thing? Now, even if it had an Indian, it doesn't matter. It's an American company, an American think tank sitting and adjudicating what is right and what is wrong in an Indian election. That is the equivalent of Russia today is going and shutting down American voices. Not that Russia today can do that. These guys can, right? So they may claim a lot of things. Unfortunately, see, they operate under Section 78, the intermediary law. They are even violating the intermediary law. Now, the way the election code of conduct here works is that, understand that even the Prime Minister himself, his power of action is limited during the elections. He can't do certain things, he can't make certain announcements, he can't say certain things and so on and so forth. But these guys, after the election code of conduct comes into play, these guys feel that they're an authority unto themselves and they can do what they want. I'm sorry, not happening. If the Prime Minister can't do what he wants, Facebook absolutely cannot do what they want. And if something is going to happen in Indian pages, it has to be constitutionally sanctioned by an Indian authority, by an Indian court, and enforced by the Indian police service, and not by Facebook and who it determines to be competent or not. I'd also like to point out that how they arrived at all of this, the raw data, the metadata, is not open to us. The algorithms that we use to determine this behavior aren't open to us. And all of this can be subject to all kinds of digital manipulation.
You have touched on a sore topic. I have in the past had hangouts with Sri Rajiv Malhotra, and we went on this very topic. What kind of algorithms is Facebook using to determine the reach and how this goes out and so on? And for me, one surprise was that Facebook expects me to pay money to them to get the word out to my own followers, which is sort of like lying, because if somebody is my follower, I expect him to get all the news items that I publish. And here it is, Facebook is saying that you pay money to us so that your followers get to see this thing. Then why don't you change the follower count to 0? Because that's what it implies.
Well, you remember, this is what Twitter was also trying for a while. They got caught at it because it was done so blatantly. You remember the algorithms where everybody's follower counts were vanishing, the like counts were vanishing about, I think this was last month or the month before.
Yes.
All of these guys, they use American protections, speech protections, protections to companies to manipulate information. They apply American paradigms that are blatantly illegal in India, and they keep shifting goalposts, saying, oh, we're an American company. But then, we want to protect Indian elections, so on and so forth. They just keep playing footsie all the time. And, I think it's high time somebody from Twitter or Facebook actually spent a year or two in jail just to drive the point home. Because I am sick and tired of these foreigners coming and telling us what to do. They can't live in a cocoon like this, protecting themselves from local law. Now, I'm not saying localized data and all of that. But ultimately, if you operate in India, you have to follow Indian law. End of story. There is no if or but to it. You can't become an extra constitutional authority.
And I agree with your viewpoint, and I think we have to wait and see what Twitter and Facebook, I guess Facebook in this instance, because Twitter shadow ban has been caught, and I hope they mend their ways. I'm not seeing that. I still see that.
You saw what happened with the BJP so-called hearing on Twitter. They fizzled out because they're so scared about protecting their own blue ticks and all of that. They don't really care about getting them. They could have easily got them because the guys who came were completely unprepared. Right? The intermediary law is very clear, and Twitter has also been violating the intermediary laws. Right? If you look at their hiring, it is of a very specific political slant. Facebook does it too. I've argued this since the donkeys come home, that or whatever that saying is, I forget now. That
cows come home.
The cows come home. Sorry. In this case, it's donkeys come home because they kind of like donkeys. It's you need to have politically neutral hiring. If you hire certain people from one spectrum, then you need to hire people from the other spectrum also. And it's time for affirmative action in hiring, because this kind of, I know him, his view kind of gels with me, he's my buddy, la-di-da-di-da. You remember Raheel Khurshid at Twitter? Yeah. I remember this because that is when all these Kashmiri guys with 5 followers, 10 followers, 100 followers, so on and so forth, absolutely no one, unheard of people started getting blue ticks just because Raheel Khurshid was there and he wanted to peddle his own little separatist agenda on Twitter. And they can do it without any this thing on them. You've seen that video of Twitter employees talking about shadow banning and so on and so forth. There is absolutely, these companies are a law unto themselves. And the problem here is, even our government, our current government, is so afflicted by a coolie mentality and this sort of feeling of racial inferiority compared to the white man, and this craving need for approval of the white man, that they're allowing them to get away with all kinds of nonsense, including directly, openly, blatantly violating Indian sovereignty.
So now you have reached out to EC and to the legal criminal authority, police authorities. Have you heard back from them?
No, and I suspect I won't. But the point is, something had to be done, right? Because from what I'm hearing, that the ACP in Delhi is politically connected to the Congress, and his wife is politically connected to the BJP. So they will sit on the entire complaint and do nothing about it. And basically, everybody is more concerned about their blue ticks and the post-retirement benefits and exposure Facebook and Twitter can give them. So they're not going to do anything.
That's very unfortunate, because you have to take anything that you have to see it to its logical conclusion, and that's one of the problems that India has. It makes these outstanding, outrageous claims, but then it doesn't follow up. I just wanted to touch a little bit back on what happened when Twitter executives were summoned by a panel, right? It was a parliamentary panel.
Yeah, it was a parliamentary privileged panel. Yes. I don't think.
So what happened? Did they show up there? The news just died.
Yeah, they showed up and they didn't know what questions to ask, so it got postponed indefinitely.
Well, they could have asked you. You would have told them all the questions.
I provided them with inputs. I provided them with inputs to, how to structure the questions so that, they walk themselves into with a wall to the back. They walk themselves into a trap because they would answer certain questions, they won't answer certain questions, and that itself will tell you a lot where to take the next step and so on and so forth. They couldn't be bothered. I mean, it seemed to me that it was more set up to be a tamasha. It wasn't meant to be anything serious.
So this is a problem that BJP has to solve. This is not expected of a party which hopes to come to power again. And I mean, I don't have any, I don't have any sides to choose here. I'm just being objective and let the truth come out. So back to Facebook, Abhijit. We are going to ask these questions of Facebook. And if you have to, say, ask 5 questions, would you like to list them out now for Facebook?
Sure. Number 1, if you started this entire program based on Russian interference in American elections, why should we not consider your interference in Indian elections to be an act of treason, espionage, and sabotage? Right? That's number 1. Number 2 is what gives you the editorial authority to determine what is legit and what is not outside of your terms and conditions? What allows you to start assuming the role of an Indian constitutional authority? At what point do you get off determining Indian debates? And those are the only 2 questions I want to ask them for the time being.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I just put you on the spot there and asked you to come up with 5 questions. The fact that you could come up with 2 very potent questions itself is very commendable. And thank you very much, Abhijit. I'm going to pass this on, and we will await their response, and we'll have more conversations on this topic, because this is not something that is just for this elections. We know there is active interference, and a country like India perhaps doesn't have the computing hardware resources to be effectively able to police all these things that is going on. Now we have to leave it to the wisdom of the voter to see his or her way clear through all this mud of political mudslinging that is going on. Thank you very much, Abhijit.
Thank you, Sri. As always, wonderful being on PGurus. Thank you.